Sorry, it may be 1 o'clock. So Marissa is going to be the coordinator for the lecture this afternoon, so I'll turn the floor over to her.
All right. Well, thank you guys for showing up. I'm sorry the food's not here, but it will eventually show up and we will eat. So last year, I kind of got a group of us together to go to this seminar that was sponsored by USPoultry and Egg. There was myself, Danica Wall, Margaret Davis, Margaret Ross, and Lauren. So we're gonna kind of do an informal presentation of what we took away from this conference, and go through each of the speakers at the conference and what we took away from their presentations. So the conference was really focused on the health and well-being and the professional development of women in the poultry industry. The women that were at this conference, they weren't just from the universities, they weren't just from the hatcheries or the field. These were administrative folks in the poultry industry, CEOs of the different companies throughout the industry. And then it was sponsored by several companies as well as the University of Georgia and University of Mississippi. So not a bad place to hold a meeting. We went to Destin, Florida. It was absolutely beautiful. None of us had ever been before, and we really enjoyed our time there. So just a quick rundown of how this seminar was held. So we had a talk by, or we had a reception the night before the conference actually began, where we got to kind of mingle with some of the other folks that were there. The next day, Sam Linares gave the first presentation from AgriStats on why our role matters in the poultry industry. I believe one of the Margarets is going to talk about his presentation. Then we talked about the role of women in leadership and the generational differences. I'm going to get back to that after Margaret gives her spiel on Sam Linares. It was basically something that we talked about in several other conferences and seminars that I've been to, and how to work amongst the generations and how to work together. After that, Mandy Conrad gave a mental and physical wellness talk, just things to keep in mind so that we can take care of ourselves as we take care of everything else in our lives. And then Laura Huckley Jennings gave a talk about change, and we all know how difficult change can be, and leading through those changes. And then finally, on our last day, Tracy DeForge, a radio DJ, gave a presentation on being a leader and how to become a leader and a better leader, whatever personal hardships you're going through and how to overcome that. All right, so with that, Margaret Davis is going to talk about Sam Linares.
All right, so the first talk of the conference was given by Sam Linares. He's an account manager with AgriStats. We probably all know what AgriStats is. It's a company that basically compiles industry data in the poultry industry, and companies can use that to see how they compare, industry-wide statistics and how they're performing. So he kind of began his talk with basically a little summary of the current state of the poultry industry. So we've had positive margins for the last 5 years, grain costs are steady, and overall doing pretty good. Consumer demands have changed, as we all know. A lot of restaurants and a lot of individual consumers are preferring the antibiotic-free NAE products, and the poultry industry has been pretty successful in keeping up with that stuff and meeting the demands of the consumer. Chicken is still a very popular meat, and we've been able to keep prices low and still meet consumer demands. And it's still surpassing both beef and pork year after year. So it's actually, he mentioned, I think it was 1.35 billion chicken wings were consumed during Super Bowl 2018. So that's a lot of chicken wings. Due to the growth of the industry, there are going to be some challenges. Margins are expected to go down. There's going to be competition from different meats, trade wars, tariff wars, and also unemployment has gone down, so we're beginning to kind of see more of a labor shortage. So we need good people in the industry. There's expected to be 5 new plants to start production in the next year and a half. I think he said 7 million new birds each week going out. So now is the time for anybody to get into the poultry industry, including women. It's said that female managers may have more people skills than their male counterparts and are, quote, more likely to lead with innovation and clarity than men. We're seeing a lot more women in male-dominated industries. I know, working in the feed mill and seeing, the feed industry, a lot of the managers of mills and, nutrition companies and stuff are retiring. I know in feed mills it's a lot of, 50s, 60s, and up, men. So we're having a lot of turnover in the feed industry, and you're starting to see a lot of women that are coming into those roles that were previously completely dominated by men, pretty much. I've met several women, even people my age, that are feed mill managers, feed mill management trainees, a lot of really, really successful women, and met a lot of really successful women at this conference. So it was really inspiring to see, other women in upper management positions, CEOs in the agricultural industry. So that was really kind of helps you see that, wow, maybe I could be like these women one day, because they're really successful. So we really appreciated the opportunity to go on this trip and meet some really influential people. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next person.
Okay. All right, so the next talk was more of a panel type discussion. Miranda Fry from Cobb, and then Kendra Waldbuster from Pilgrims. And they're pretty high up in these companies. Miranda Fry talked about the millennial generation and how we're kind of different from previous generations. And just from looking around the room, I can tell that there's probably definitely some representation of each of the different generational groups in this room. And learning how to work together with those generational differences in mind was a hot topic of this talk. So one of the main points that she made was that millennials tend to work by the platinum rule, which is a little bit different from the golden rule. I think we all kind of learned that. And the platinum rule is to treat others how they wish to be treated. So recognizing that treating somebody how you want to be treated is different from how they want to be treated. She encouraged that we communicate with each other to find out what each other's needs are, to go beyond that work relationship and know each other on a more personal level. She also encouraged us to have a work-life balance, and that is something that I think is very important. It's easy to get wrapped up in your work life and not extend outside of that. Sorry.
We're in awe.
Hold on.
Sorry about that.
Again, establishing a work-life balance is really important, and I think we can all kind of relate to that, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in your work and let that consume. So she used these examples as things that we need to consider when we're building those whole life relationships. Keeping in mind the things that are important in our own lives, our work life, our faith, our children, our families, and those type of things. Then Kendra talked to us about Generation X, and the fact that generational differences are full of stereotypes that I'm sure we have all heard and witnessed. So we need to define our why. So what is our purpose, and really communicate with each other. and to get to know our employees and ourselves. That's kind of a point that each of them hit on, getting to know each other on a more personal level, which was something that we were actually able to do as a group during this conference. We had a lot of time that we could spend together and get to know one another. And then to check our own biases, so just to make sure that we're really getting to know the real person we have in front of us, and not the stereotypical person. So this is just a chart that breaks down the different generations and how each of these generations have a different work type. So the baby boomers, I'll just go through the work ethics, workaholics, competitive, Generation X, efficient, self-reliant, millennials, ambitious, multitasking, tenacious, and Generation Z, intensive, pragmatic, and project-oriented. Sorry. None of these are bad things, but we have to keep these in mind when we're working with each other. Do we want to break for
Let's
lunch?
break, and then we can get back into it after everybody gets something to eat.
Okay, we're gonna keep going while everyone's eating. The next speaker that we have was Mandy Conrad, and she talked about, like Marissa had said, maintaining the work-life balance, but more of like your whole life balance as far as your health and nutrition and all of that. She talked a lot about you can see the graphic over there, how your mental, physical, and emotional health all kind of play in together, and that if one is lacking, then your whole person is lacking, and I can definitely attest to that. I feel like we all, men or women, have a tendency to put one on the back burner, whether it be your physical health or your mental health. You're just working, and never taking a break. And so she talked about that and how when it comes to physical health and eating, which we're having pizza today, but how it's important to eat to fuel your body, not just to eat to fuel yourself so that you're not hungry anymore. And that based on your stage of life will determine how you should be eating, what nutrients you should be getting, things like that. And how when you fuel your body with what it needs versus what you want, then that gives you the energy and everything you need to have the baseline for good mental health and emotional health. And then again, finding that work-life balance. So I know, maybe not for us, so to speak, but people in the industry are on 24/7. You're pretty much on call 24/7. And it's hard sometimes, depending on what you're doing, to have a good work-life balance, because you feel like you have to take your work home with you, you have to answer the phone at 3 a.m., you have to answer emails at 10 p.m., and things like that, and finding a balance that works for you, works for your family, so that you're available to everyone who needs you, which can be a bunch of people or just one or two, depending on what you're doing. And then again, listen to what our bodies are telling us and eat intuitively. So I'm hungry, oh, I love some French fries. That was me on the way here. I had a 2.5 hour drive. I was listening to the radio, someone was talking about, it was a commercial about distracted driving. So-and-so's not letting those French fries in the passenger seat distract his driving, and I was like, oh, French fries! It's 9:45, I need French fries. But I didn't stop and get French fries. I did not. I had Push Bar instead. But eating intuitively for what you need versus what you want, I think is very important. Oh, lunchtime. No, but we had lunch that day after that speaker. And Margaret, are you next?
Y'all are a very quiet group to be eating pizza. I'm impressed. All right, just making sure that was working out. Yep. So I have a couple of my notes from being at the actual conference that I brought with me. I thought that would probably be the most helpful for me. So I'll go through this slide real quick. Laura Huckabee Jenkins was one of the speakers. She's the one that I chose to talk about. So one of the things she said is that we're always changing and growing. So how many of you guys know that that's true? Yeah, every day something is changing in your life, is it not? Good, bad, or ugly, you don't always get to vet. So we're always changing, we're always growing. Even through change, leaders should inspire and motivate themselves. So the first thing she talked about was, especially if you're in a team setting and you're trying to lead a team, it's really hard to get your team motivated if you don't want to be there, right? If you're acting like you don't really care about the project or you're not interested, it's really probably pretty hard to get others motivated to do the same type of work. And also to take positive action and achieve goals. So focus, connect, and learn. So a few of my notes, one of the first things that she told us was that if you're not changing, you're dying. And that seems a little harsh, right, when you think about it. But I guarantee you, if you think about that statement tomorrow, it'll probably make a little bit more sense to you. So we've got some head nods in the back. Because once you think about that, it's true. I mean, you have to adjust, you have to grow, you have to move with the things that are presented with you. This hit really, really close to home for me. So she talked about restructuring, and I can't remember if she had a restructure in her own job that brought her to this or whatnot, but it says it doesn't mean that you're getting laid off. So my boss, Keith, is here today, and he'll attest to this. So we actually, Cooperative Extension several years ago did just that. We had a restructure. That's a little scary for people who've been here for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, right? So you don't know what that means. So I was the livestock agent in Craven and Jones County at the time. We hear that we're going to restructure. What immediately comes to your mind? People are going to get gone, right? Right? That's scary. So we knew that we were going to be able to keep or hire X amount of people, and sometimes that was 1.3 people per office, which makes no sense, right? Per office. And so we knew that in each county we had to look and we had to see how many people we were going to be able to keep and how many people had to find somewhere else to go. I knew that I was the last hire of the 3 ag agents in my office. So who do you think would have been the first to go? Probably Margaret. We won't ever know, thank God, because this poultry ASA opportunity came up. Was it scary to apply for this job, having mainly just an extension background? Yes, it was very scary. My immediate boss at the time, I could tell that he was always very helpful and always pushing me to do good things, but even he was kind of like, are you sure that you want to do that? And I was like, well, Tom, I don't really have a lot of choices. I mean, if I want to stay in extension, I have to move. I have to do something else. But it brought me here today. So when she talked about restructuring, that really hit home to me because we have actually been through that. How do you turn change into something that's positive? The first person you inspire is yourself, so we had a lot of the same notes that we took that day. Focus on the job and do your best at it. So sometimes it may not be a job that you really want or that you really want to work on that day, but you still need to do a good job and take pride in your work. One other thing I thought she said that was really cool is that we're designed to live in tribes. So we're designed to do teamwork. We're designed to work together. We're designed for each person to have a specialty or to have something that they're maybe better at than you are. Not everyone can be good at everything, right? Are you good at everything? Oh, I'm not. You may be, but I'm not. So I thought that was interesting as well. Then help others feel good. How can we go about our days and make someone else feel like they're important, feel like they've contributed, and feel like they've done a good job? And then also connecting with our personal values. Then she had us do an exercise that, I don't want to say it like this, but if you died today, what would people remember about you? So she said she was a leader who, and you were to fill in the blank. So if you passed away today, he or she, you, were a leader that did what? Not something maybe that you physically did research-wise, but did you inspire people? Did you help people grow? Did you help people change? What did you do? What do you want to be remembered for? So I, again, kind of thought about that the next day or 2, 3 days later, and it probably may mean a little bit more to you at that time. Share the why. Why are you doing this? And that will change. Your priorities change throughout your life, correct? If you're in grad school and you're young and you don't have a family yet, your priorities are different than mine. I have a 14-month-old. They're different, right? Yeah, that's not bad. They're just different. So that's important to acknowledge that and to be able to work in that way. Encourage the opportunity mindset, and then celebrate small wins. I think that's really important to celebrate small wins. If you are looking at a huge project, you know, they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Small wins are very important. So I did also especially want to thank Dr. Grimes and Marissa and everybody here. It's nice for Lauren and Richard and Dan and I to come to campus and kind of connect. And when I was livestock agent, I didn't always feel like we connected with campus very well and with the departmental faculty, but we've never had an issue here in poultry science. We've always been included and people want us to come and do things, so that's really nice. So thank you for the trip, thank you for the funding, thank you for organizing, and I mean, that means a lot to us to have that opportunity. So I'll let you get back to your pizza.
All right. So our last speaker was on day 2 by the name of Tracy DeForge. Hope I'm saying her name correctly. So she is broadcast media management and also does consulting for Fortune 500 companies. So Tracy was very animated, which we, I think, appreciated on the second day of sitting through speakers. So her main topic was cultivating the leader in you. So with hers, it was pretty much all morning with Tracy. So we had a lot of interactive activities with her. We also got to get in little small groups and have discussions, going over the things as how we see ourselves as a leader, how can we improve ourselves, personal stories, and a lot of things that we were able to talk with. I don't know about you guys, but for myself, able to relate to other people that came to the meeting as well. So we were able to share stories. We were able to try to help each other out, give it sound advice to each other as well. So the key part of our group discussions and activities was being honest, which some of us was a little maybe harder than others. There were a lot of personal stories shared during this time. For me, one of the things that I'm juggling with right now is that I'm a foster mother. So it's a challenge trying to be a mother and then trying to be an employee and then trying to be a student. So there was a couple of other moms in the group that were able, thank you for your advice, that were able to like give advice, and you guys, we were all in the same category groups. We were able to share our stories and give each other advice. And then we were able to so we did a lot of like dancing. We did a lot of, you guys remember like the songs and stuff that we did? So she would play like music for like a minute, and we were all to get up and like just start dancing. We were like, I don't think I want to dance in front of people. Maybe look at weird, but it was cool. It allowed us to put our guards down for a second, not only just to be silly, but kind of relieve stress and move forward with her topics. But from her, the most important thing I think that we all got is that no is a complete sentence. So if I tell you no, guys, I do love you, but it is a complete sentence. But just know that we, as women especially, we tend to take on sometimes more than we can chew, and we are very versatile individuals. So sometimes we have to say no, not because we want to be mean, but just because we literally just can't do it. And that is one of my challenges that I am currently working on. So if I do tell you no, I still love you. It's just gonna be a no. So yeah, she was very animated. So we had a good time with her. So our overall message from our experience there was the most important message we received from all of the speakers was to make sure that we take care of ourselves. So a lot of times we don't do that because we're too busy trying to take care of everybody else, making sure that we're doing what we need to do to make programs run efficiently. In addition to everything else, we just need to take care on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of times we get overwhelmed with activities and programs and schoolwork that we are consumed in the overall idea, and we don't take things day by day. And again, on behalf of all of us that went, I want to thank Dr. Grimes, the extension in our department, for allowing us to go. We had a fantastic time. We got to learn more about each other, maybe more than what we wanted to know. But it's okay. We're all friends here. So we had a really, really, really great time. So until next year. And we ate like a lot. So maybe too much. But thanks, guys. Thanks for coming to our once you learn.
Thank you. We have a few minutes before 1 o'clock. If you want to ask a quick question with a short answer, certainly you feel free to raise your hand if you recognize.
Is this a yearly event?
Yes. I think what, they just started doing this might be the,
It wasn't the first
No.
year, but I know they've done it a couple years in
Yeah.
the past, and it keeps growing.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Mary had a question?
No, that was the same question. Is it something that's gonna happen every year?
Mhm.
And then,
Did y'all get a feel from the speakers about the status of the poultry industry, how far it's come with respect to women in leadership?
Sam Lenars actually touched on that quite a bit in his presentation. He focused on the antibiotic-free movement and how that has really shifted the industry. But he also talked about how, women in poultry was related positions, there's been a significant increase in the number of women in the industry.
And it's projected to keep increasing over the time.
The demand is really increasing.
Do you have an idea then, is it about 50-50, or are there's, 25% women and 75% men?
I don't know
Depends
that
on the position, but it'd be nice to have a.
I don't know that he put an actual
Yeah.
statistic on it.
I don't think it's even at currently, but it's definitely increasing.
Yes.
So of course, we want everybody to stay here as long as possible. But were there networking opportunities? Were there any sort of like speed dating, meet a whole bunch of people?
So we actually did that at lunch. So we were, you had to, each lunch table had a representative from USPoultry and Egg. And then I forgot how they made us. You sat at,
We were supposed
Right.
to sit at different.
Margaret followed directions, we did not.
The rest of us.
We did not.
So we had a little discussion topic, kind of,
Like
our
what you
question
do
was
and-
what brings out the leader in you, and we all kind of went around the table and discussed it.
Even though we were all at the same table from the same place, there was a couple of other people from different universities. I think we sat with some folks from the University of Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
And we got to talk about, even within our different positions, the different ways we lead or can inspire leadership.
Well, honestly, we don't see each other all the time anyway, so it was really helpful for us to sit at the same table,
Right.
minus Margaret at that moment, and to learn, a little bit more about our backgrounds as well.
did they give a breakdown of where women are within the industry? Are they more currently administrative people, or are we slowly finally trickling up into management roles and
I don't know that they put a number on that.
Yeah, they
either.
didn't,
Yeah.
I don't think they put a number, but he did mention that traditionally women have been in the administrative roles, but that is changing. But there wasn't, I don't really know that he ever gave statistics on No, he didn't give stats on it. percentages of management or anything like
But
that.
just from the people who stood up and were sharing some stories, there were a lot of people outside of that administrative sector of the industry that were there.
Yes.
So along the same lines, was there any discussion on ways that they're trying to, whether it's a university or a business, they're trying to get women into those upper leadership roles? I mean, you can look at within this department alone, you go to a staff meeting, it's 9 out of 10
Yeah.
women, but then faculty probably the opposite. But then you look at grad students, and even Dr. Edith mentioned there's more female grad students than there are male, but yet you don't see that transition to the upper faculty area. So are there any ongoing efforts to try to change that? If we're in discussions of that?
That wasn't a topic of the conference. And again, they didn't produce any stats as to see like where women are, like how we're currently placed in the industry as a whole. The overall was that each section within the sector is increasing with women. But they didn't really break down as far as, how many women from whatever
poultry background and going to the different levels within the industry.
But we've noticed that there's a lot of, and they may have touched on this as well, there's a lot of turnover in the industry. So as people are retiring, they're needing more people to move into those roles. And I think they are seeing an increase in women because of that.
So, did they give any advice as to how to bridge the gap, especially from, you guys are primarily millennial generation, where the people you are replacing are baby boomers that, you know, they compromised family for work success, where we are more family oriented, more relationship. So how do we bridge the gap between the baby boomers and the millennials, and also incorporating female perspectives in this? Do they give any?
They've stressed communication, being open with your colleagues when possible. We all know that you can't always be open with our colleagues, but when that's appropriate and possible, to open communication and making sure that we're talking with one another about our needs and each other's needs. So that was their suggestion, and they're nice for that. I wonder if you guys could.
Well, and then like the way to communicate with each other. Like if I'm talking to Marissa, I might can talk to her differently as opposed to talking to somebody older or significantly younger than I am. So the way you communicate as well.
The one that did it was like a double panel, if you will. They had an older lady and then the younger lady. I can't remember their names right now, but that was really cool to see how they interacted, talking to us about how to interact with people that are different than us. And they did mention like personality assessments. That's really helpful if you can do that as an office or as a team or as a feed mill or whatever. And then you kind of know a little bit more about that person, how that person wants you to communicate with them. And I thought that was helpful too, because I've done that in, you know, offices here and there, but people change all the time. Your office changes all the time. So I think trying to keep that updated, and if you have a good supervisor and a good boss, that's helpful too. You don't always have that necessarily.
While we're on the topic of language, and this is something that women in my field were discussing even 10, 20 years ago, was that, and this is a generalization, okay, but women often say, I think we should do this, whereas a man will say, we should do this, and it's almost seemed like the women aren't as confident or as certain, so they don't seem as much of a leader. They're just suggesting, well, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, and how just the difference in the wording and how something is suggested can really influence the perception or interpretation of what they're doing. You know, that might be communicating about it, may help get it around, or just seeing whether or not you actually have to change what you say. You know, just the wording of how you say it to gain that stronger, more confident presence, so people take it more seriously.
And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with, is the confidence. And I think that's something that they encourage us to work on and to improve.
But it's not just confidence. If you're confident, but use the wording, I think, to be more, not necessarily polite, but trying to be more collaborative with people. You're putting it forward as a suggestion instead of a command. You can be as confident as you want, but if you use the wording and you use underlying, you know, how certain you are.
So today you transfer a lot of stuff that you learn in the conference, but just for each one of you personally, if you can, everyone say what they been learned, like a go-home message that it touched you personally. Okay, they are talking about me. This is what I need to do. If each one of you like tell us what is the unique message that she gave it. We're gonna give it like a.
Yeah. So the most important thing I think I took away from it is getting to know your colleagues on a more personal level. You know, understanding that they have other things going on than just work. And I think that's super important when you're building relationships to improve communications with your colleagues.
I think for me, overall, it's more so reevaluating who I am to make sure that I can be the best possible version of me to help others around me. I think that's important, and again, also with communication, when you communicate, how you communicate, and then also taking into effect how that person might perceive it or might receive it is also important.
I would definitely agree with the communication. And realizing how different people communicate differently. You might have somebody come up and say something to you, and you kind of take it the wrong way when they really didn't mean it like that. So I think understanding that people will communicate differently is another thing. I also would say being a confident leader. I know one of the speakers stressed that, you know, if you show up and you're just like nobody's really going to take you seriously, people aren't going to want to follow you if you're kind of negative. And I've tried to take that kind of into my personal life and kind of try to lead more positively, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand up so y'all can hear me because I feel like I'm in the corner back here. So I would say kind of the same thing, but the opposite. So I tend to be very direct. I would say
Not you.
No, not me, never. But like recognizing that and acknowledging that not everyone else is direct, and that me being direct is not always taken the way that I mean for it to be taken. Is that the best way to say that? And talking about the work-life balance, that was a big thing for me, because coming from the industry into extension, like I felt like I had no work-life balance. It was just work, and oh, there's life, you know. And so really just taking that into account and understanding your priorities and sticking to those priorities, and not being afraid to tell people this is where my priorities lie. And then working with different generations too. I mean, I don't know, there's no good way to summarize it, because the whole thing was good, I think, for each of us. We each took something away from each of the sessions, but that was a big thing for me.
Well, now I feel like I have to stand. I think my biggest thing was the work-life balance. That's really hard with a kid. And when I started in extension, I had a boyfriend who lived far away. And so I didn't have a husband, I didn't have a family, I had, you know, a dog and a cat. That was my world. So it was really super easy to work all the time, and that was what I did, and that was what I wanted to do, and that was fine. And then when I got married, that changed. And when I had a baby, that changed. And then when we bought a farm, that changed. And being able to make a schedule and stick to it and convey to the people in your life when Abel has to be picked up and when he has to be gotten to daycare and when he needs diapers, but also at the same time answering the phone calls that you have from your poultry folks calling you, trying to start on your doctorate and figuring out when you're going to do that and who you're going to do that. I mean, it's hard to do all of that. You guys know you're doing it now. So I have found that I need to communicate better with my husband and maybe be a little more direct and say, you need to get able today, and I'm not asking you to do it, you need to do it. And because I just can't get there, or whatever it may be. So I think maybe I've taken a little bit of Lauren's redheadedness, we call it, and maybe have been a little bit more direct, and that has helped maybe make my life a little bit easier in some respects, but also making sure that he feels appreciated because he knows he's helping us be a better family. I think that's really important. And one thing we didn't mention that we talked about the whole time that really cracked us up was, I think it was Tracy mentioned, she called them energy vampires.
Oh, yes.
And what do you think that may mean? So someone who sucks all your energy. How many of you have someone in your life like that?
Everybody.
I hope you're not married to that person. But there's a lot of energy vampires out there, and she was telling us, along with saying that no is a complete sentence, that you don't have to be around those people any more than you have to be. So if you work with them, you might have to be, but don't hang out with them after work. If you are married to that person, I'm sorry, you may need to have a different discussion with, someone else. But don't be around people that are just sucking all of the energy out of you. If you are drained when you go home, not because you had a long, stressful, hard day and a lot of meetings and a lot of research going on, but because that one person was just literally like, oh, this is what I did today, my life is so awful, and oh my God. Does that not make you feel terrible when you go home? So don't let someone suck your energy out. That's a real thing. We didn't have a better term for it until Tracy told us that. That's what that's called.
True.
And the last important thing that we learned was how to reschedule flights when they get canceled. When you get kicked off your airplane on your way back.
one last question.
Okay.
So there's this really interesting phenomenon that happens, difference between men and women. Man having a conversation that's assertive, he's viewed as a leader. A woman having that same conversation is viewed as a bitch. How, it is true. Did they give you any insights as to how to manage that and wield around that without coming across and having to be, I think, can you please, or
Did y'all pick up on any of the speakers that?
I
We
don't,
should have written that down as a topic for the future, but
yeah, I don't know that, like, that any of them addressed
no.
that, but I will, just from a personal side, someone told me a long time ago, it is not up to you what others think about you. You can't control that, to an extent. You know, you can, I mean, I guess in a way you can, but if you're being direct, or if you're in charge of a department, and you give instructions, and someone takes that differently because you're a woman versus than if you were a man, you can't help that. That's on them. So I think, you know, I mean, no one really addressed that, but again, I'm the more direct of the five of us, so stuff like that doesn't bother me, but.
And then I guess too, it goes back to communication styles too, because
Yeah.
like everyone was saying, like if I were to go up to a group of guys and say, well, I think we should do this, it's not me being passive, it's me being considerate versus me saying, no, we're going to do this. I think it's a time and a place when you can be that way, and then when you have leeway, like, okay, well, I can or I don't have to. I guess it depends on the audience that you're talking to, and it depends on the how you communicate to them, that group of people and stuff like that. I can be both. I don't have a problem doing either one. And I mean, they both have their negative effects, they both have positive effects. I guess it just depends on, well, if I go the more assertive way, am I ready to be labeled as a bitch? And if it's yes, then I will go straight forward and say, oh well, get over it. So I guess it just depends on situations and then communication styles and pretty much who your target audience is.
Well, it's about time we start thinking about departing. I do thank you all for showing up this afternoon for this seminar. I think it's been quite informative. It's encouraging. And I'm sure these ladies who were speakers today will be more than happy to address any other questions you might have. All you've got to do is call them, email them, and I think they'll be very quick to respond to you. It's been a good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming.